Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 54 of Nintendo Everything Refresh, the weekly show where we keep you up to date on everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host, Nicolas, and joining me today is the wonderful Tom Chaplin.
Wow, wonderful. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, just speaking the truth here.
Okay.
And also joining us for the first time is the lovely Sam Kingma.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Yep, thank you for coming on. Tom and Sam work on the YouTube channel for Nintendo Everything, and they make a lot of good stuff there. They recently put out a video on how to beat the original Legend of Zelda, which, if you're interested in that, highly recommend giving that a watch.
Yeah, get ready to pause a lot because it's real fast. it's light speed. But I didn't want to waste anyone's time. They had only a short amount of time between we uploaded that and Tears of the Kingdom came up. I wanted people to beat it beforehand, but if you haven't, I don't blame you for not. Play Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Nick, who's usually hosting the podcast, is a little busy this week, so he's not going to be able to come to host this one, but he will be back next week, and all will be back to normal. But today, we have a very, very special episode, because, as you're all aware, a little game called Tears of the Kingdom just released, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that. First, though, we're just going to talk about a few details about the game before going more into depth. We'll talk about some of the interviews that came up this week after the financial sales disclosure that Nintendo had. We'll talk about just a couple of unfortunate delays for a few games, and then just some mention of some of the games that have been announced and released this week, as usual. But first things first, we do have the results from last week's giveaway. So we announced a giveaway last week for Forever Entertainment's Magical Drop 6, and we have a list of all the winners. The winners are Cesar Tribst, BlueEyes, J88Fitness, 47 Drift, and Denny South. So congratulations to all of you. We'll be responding to the winners' YouTube comments with instructions on how to get their codes. And once again, thank you to Forever Entertainment for the opportunity for this giveaway.
Look at this podcast, giving away free games.
It's always lovely to do it. Just giving back to the community.
If I were listening, I'd subscribe right now to make sure I can get a free game in the future, maybe.
I mean, here's hoping. If anyone wants to hit us up with more giveaways, we'll gladly do them.
Yeah, there you go.
But I think, podcast has only just started, but I think we're all ready to talk about Tears of the Kingdom, so let's go ahead. Like I mentioned, we're going to be staying relatively spoiler-free at the start, but at the end of the podcast, we will be talking just pretty much full-on what we've been experiencing with the game. So no spoilers for now. You're free to listen. If you're worried about that, that'll be at the very end, and we'll bring it back up then. But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom, that released. It's been doing super well critically. Everyone's been loving it. I assume you guys have probably played it?
Yes, I have about 13 hours in it since it came
Oh,
out.
my.
I was ready. I was sitting at the Switch locked and loaded. It was preloaded. I was ready to go. And yeah, I live in Central Time, so it unlocked at 11 p.m. for me. And yeah, stayed up till like 3 a.m. that night playing it.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm loving it so far. I don't know about y'all. How far are y'all, you guys?
Well, according to the Switch, I am started 30 hours ago into it, so that's really exciting. I've played a lot. I think I'm more than Sam. I think I've an unhealthy amount. I was like you, Sam, staying up. I'm Eastern Time Zone till the midnight. The Majora's Mask clock strike 12:01. I started the game till about 3 a.m. Similarly, I got through like the tutorial, and then Friday was just that. That was it. My whole Friday. So how many hours were in Friday, that's where I got done.
Nice. I think for my part, I got the game a little bit later on in the day because I was waiting for a review code. But pretty much ever since getting that, I've just been playing Tears of the Kingdom. That game has been really, really fun. Just everything that they've done has somehow made the original Breath of the Wild formula feel so new. More so than I expected.
We did a lot of content leading up, Sam and I, to this game's release, analyzing the trailers, and I do feel like confident that we kind of said this is like leaning in really hard into the systemic play of Breath of the Wild to even a greater degree. And now that I've experienced it, it's like I feel like that's paid off so massively, that decision. And it's not a decision that you could say, I don't know. Obviously, any Zelda game is safe, but like, it's a decision that alienates some from this game. And I'm sure a lot of people who've played 5 hours of this game and have hot takes of how it's like not great. But if you're into this systemic play, like I'm kind of almost in awe of how much is made available to you from the beginning of the game, of what you can do, and the new abilities make this almost like Minecraft. Like,
Yeah, no, it's incredibly sandboxy. I think it's also interesting just all these new systems, and yet there's also so many things that stayed the same. And the devs have mentioned how they kind of struggled trying to figure out what it is to keep from the original game versus what to add and what counts as like genuine new content, what should be a mainstay. And I think they just nailed it. There's all the elements that we love from Breath of the Wild are still here. Even weapon breaking, which, that might be in contention. But, and yet, again, there's still so many new things. All the new abilities especially are just opening up so many possibilities. And we've already seen a lot of wacky stuff with Ultra Hand and Fuse especially. But even things like Recall, that's become my personal favorite ability so far because it just opens so many possibilities for what you can do with the engine.
Yeah, I found some pretty interesting and have solved puzzles in some pretty convoluted ways with Recall. I really love all of the new abilities. When they were first shown off in trailers, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna miss Magnesis and Cryo and the bombs, of course. I really miss the bombs.
I do too. I really miss the bombs still.
Yeah, I'll third that.
Agree.
Yeah.
Having limited bombs with the bombs, it's not as good.
What is this, 1985?
Yeah.
I like
In
the
this
infinite
economy?
bombs. The zero-sum bomb economy of Zelda.
Yeah, I know. I'm totally with you. I mean, at least the bomb flowers feel like leagues stronger than the remote bombs were, because the remote bombs were pretty weak as a trade-off for being infinite use. But I will say I have found it pretty interesting that the 4 starting tools you get don't really interact with the enemies at all directly. You can't like necessarily pick up an enemy with Ultra Hand. You can't rewind an enemy like you could like with stasis and like stop them in place. It's mostly for objects and items just found on the overworld. But the fact that even with it being limited to just that, the tools are super useful and really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's probably a conscious decision to try and turn those away from being enemy focused towards just being, like Tom had mentioned, a bit more systemic, changing things on more of a system level. And it's really worked out. I don't think there's really anyone that's complaining about the way these abilities are working. They're just so fun.
Yeah, and I'd like to get into a few specific ones later on when we get to like the spoiler section of like some specific ways these powers really combine in fascinating and horrific ways, that in a funny way. But for sure, like, the game reviewed well, but I refused to read any of them. Not because I'm an anti-review. I just didn't want any more. I didn't want any more knowledge. I didn't want more anything. But clearly, I saw the score lineup, right? It seemed like 10s across the board. And
there's 96 on Metacritic
I
right
believe
now?
so, yeah.
Oh,
Something
those are pretty
like that.
rare.
Right. And I wonder like how we're feeling about that. I guess like early on in our playthroughs, like it seems like we're pretty positive. Like, do we think like, is this the Zelda blue honeymoon period, right? Like every Zelda game gets 10s, Skyward Sword gets 10s, or I don't know. That's kind of something I've been thinking about.
I think it's kind of Zelda honeymoon theory, but I haven't, because I've played enough to be like, oh, the scope of this is so big, this could definitely totally be a 10. And I'll say this, I typically will not play a game in a day for like 8 to 10 hours. So the fact that I did that yesterday means I'm pretty into this one. But there have been like a couple core things so far in my Tears of the Kingdom journey that have like annoyed me. And I think because I don't want to get into any crazy gameplay spoilers. We'll talk about that towards the end. That's made me be like, oh wow, I'm kind of shocked by all the 10s based on a couple of the pain points I've like rubbed up against so far. But at the same time, all the stuff that's good is so darn good. Oh my goodness. And especially the scope of the game. What's impressed me the most is this is so much bigger than
Yeah, right, totally. Like, I mean, we know the sky and the underground, but they are really important to the feeling of scope. Like, it does feel a lot bigger with those areas added. Yeah.
And this isn't like Skyward Sword Sky either. It's like, no, it's like meaningful Breath of the Wild gameplay just on 10,000 feet in the sky instead now.
I love I love it. I love the sky. Every time I'm in the sky, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, just also visually, the way the sky feels is so good. I mean, honestly, both the underground and the sky have such a significant contrast in terms of design to the actual mainland Hyrule. It really makes them feel unique and like their own little experiences. So exploring them feels extra rewarding because of that, I feel.
Yeah, and also too, like, I want to get your guys' opinions on this. As far as the exploring of mainland Hyrule, I've been like, what's old is new again here. Like, I really don't feel like, oh, I've seen all this before. Like when I'm just trotting around or going from place to place. Yeah, there's places I recognize, but they're either dealing with some new problem caused by the two new areas acting amongst in the sky and the depths, or there's just notable gameplay or systemic changes just make traversing the mainland Hyrule just more interesting or different enough than Breath of the Wild to make it unique and worthwhile. I
think I agree with that. I've played hundreds of hours of the original Breath of the Wild, and yet this is still making me feel like this is the first time I'm exploring these areas. It just feels different. I don't know if it's all the chasms opening up or the debris that's landing on on the surface, but it just feels very different. I think the enemy variety as well. The fact that there are actual caves, so there's new points of exploration. There's just a lot that contributes to even the surface feeling completely different from the original game.
Well, and also like resource collecting now is so much more important and incentivized because of fusion and all these things, that taking a detour to just get some ore or get some blah, whatever, X item is actually like super beneficial to you. Where after a while in Breath of the Wild, it's like it either needs to be the stronger weapon or I'm out. Like,
yeah, like I that's the best part. Probably the single best mechanic of the new game is fusing, and specifically fusing weapons to other weapons and arrows to other random objects in your arsenal.
So good.
Because the amount of random crap I'm like ecstatic for is just insane. Like I'm like, oh yeah, Keese eyeballs, heck yeah, like
exactly,
those are great. Like, whereas in Breath of the Wild, there was a lot of kind of random whatever collectibles, and they all served their purpose. But for the most part, as Tom said, if you weren't directly looking for the 3 items necessary to upgrade your gear of choice, most of that stuff would just went in the inventory and you completely forgot about it. Where here, everything has like a meaningful use case because you can equip it in battle or attach it to a weapon. Well, because properties.
I feel like, and maybe I'll get your opinions on this. This game's hard. Mm-hmm. Like all the like they made these kind of resources valuable not just because of the mechanic, but because you need them because combat is pretty difficult in this game. I find it much more difficult than Breath of the Wild, and I played Breath of the Wild. I played on Master Mode. Like I'm not gonna say I'm good at this game, but I have experience with it, and I feel like the progression of that early RPG-esque progression where that early game is really difficult and tough and survival almost. I feel it a lot in this game, even more than Breath of the Wild.
I was going to say, like, tied to that difficulty material aspect, the game definitely does feel harder than Breath of the Wild, and I think another way that it benefits from this is that it feels a lot more necessary to be cooking food. To me, at least, I found a lot more situations where I really want to have a wide array of meals ready beforehand that can just pop out a moment's notice. Like now, for instance, there's a meal that lets you climb wet surfaces, which is insane.
I unlocked that
useful.
today. I unlocked that today. It's amazing. Oh, it's awesome.
And so because of this, because there's so many more meal effects and the game being more difficult, you're more incentivized to be making more meals, which is already something where you're interacting with the system more than the original. Because in the original, really all you needed to do was cook like extra hard food, extra stamina food, and you were good. Here, there's so much more, and because there's so much more, you're also gathering more materials, and that in itself is making you explore the world and interact with it more.
And also, too, to add on top of that, Nicholas, because cooking is definitely more important, but also the items that you use for elixirs or whatnot are monster horns and other monster parts that you also want to equip on your weapons. Mm-hmm. So you also need to make a meaningful choice now with like your bokoblin horns and your lizards and all this stuff, because everything is everything's multi-purpose now, which it just makes the game way more interesting to play because you're constantly making decisions, even when you're not directly in combat.
Yeah, it's just more layers on top of layers on top of layers, which, funnily enough, is also just how you explore the game now.
I haven't verbalized any of these thoughts or heard anyone talk about them, because I was away from the reviews and I'm just playing this game. But now that we're talking about it, I'm like even more excited about it now because it's like, man, that's right. Like everything is really folding in. It feels like, back to my earlier query about 10 out of 10, it feels like this will really recontextualize Breath of the Wild's 10 out of 10s as like, oh, that's a very different game. I'm not going to say that this game replaces it by any means. Not going to go there at all. But it's just so interesting how the world built in Breath of the Wild seems like this game is actually leveraging it more.
It's like, to me, I feel like Tears of the Kingdom is like, it is kind of like the evolution of man, where like Breath of the Wild was very much like, oh, let's go explore nature, let's be one with the wild, very limited tool set, kind of just pick up the garbage you find on the ground and use it to its extent, and then it breaks or whatever. And now Link's making tools. Now he unlocked mankind's ability to craft items and make tools, and
now he's making a mech.
Yeah.
I can't
He's
wait
making machines. Right. He's making machines and vehicles that move and fly.
I can't wait till the third game, Legend of Zelda 2001: A Space Odyssey, where we open the pod bay doors. How kind of like a sequel to this one? Because I totally agree. I never thought about it that way, but you're totally right. Like all this kind of, even rocket ships and all these machines. Yeah, that's funny. And like the rebuilding of civilization too, that had been kind of teetering on the edge in Breath of the Wild. Now it's like there's some more kind of growth there. It does seem like the world's healing in a way.
Yeah, do we know how many years since the events of the end of Breath of the Wild in this game? I couldn't really tell.
Yeah, I haven't come across anything in-game mentioning it, and I don't think they've talked about it outside of the game at all.
Yeah, because, I mean, Link and Zelda more or less look the same. I mean, Link's obviously got longer hair and Zelda's cut her hair, but, I mean, other than that, they look basically the same. But also, the events of Breath of the Wild happen 100 years before, like, the true events of that game's plot.
Right. So time is not much of a thing in these games.
But yeah. I mean, yeah, game's awesome. I mean, I'm sure most people out there agree.
And
yeah,
again, I want to get into like brass tacks later on too. I want to talk about some juicy stuff when we key that in later in the show. But I don't know. I think for now, yeah, game's awesome. Believe the hype, I guess. Especially, but go into it with the mindset of what you're gonna get into. I think some people are like, I think Zelda's different than what it has been historically, and this is even more so that. And I think there needs to be an openness to that, I guess, of like taking your time, slowing down, and playing with toys again. You know?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of viewing it. But we're definitely going to be talking a little bit more about the game later during the refresh rate. For now, let's move on to a few more different topics. Firstly is that we have Nintendo's financial results. These come out every few months. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of numbers. Some more interesting ones. For instance, the Switch is at 125 million units sold, just about. So it's slowly climbing up there. I believe it has to get to 155-ish to be able to become the first best-selling console ever.
Yeah, to beat PS2.
Yes. Who knows if it'll get there, particularly because Nintendo's president was talking in interviews following these results, and it was talking about how it's becoming tough to maintain the Switch's sales momentum. As the years go by, we're in the 7th year of the system's lifespan, which is quite a lot, and it's becoming harder and harder to be selling these systems. So, I don't know if we're going to be able to reach that number. That's something that people have been talking about a lot, is can the Switch actually get to the PS2's level of sales? And I'm not quite sure if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think it's probably going to... I don't know. Me personally, I think it'll probably peter out before it surpasses PlayStation 2. But it's also worth noting that PlayStation 2 in its time in the market was also a DVD player that cost hundreds of dollars less than buying a traditional DVD player. So whereas a good majority of PlayStation 2s were bought by people to watch movies, people who buy Switches were specifically buying it to game. So while it's not quite as big of a number as PS2, it is still extremely impressive for being a more or less exclusive gaming machine.
Right. It has a bit more value in that regard. It is also worth noting that, according to the president, we're not going to be getting any new hardware this fiscal year. So no sequel Switch, no Switch Pro, which, if that is the case, that would be another year of the Switch kind of being sold without people getting distracted from it. That being said, what do you guys think about this? Because there's been a lot of speculation over the last few months about new hardware coming out, some speculation even about it coming out this holiday season, and this kind of just seems to shoot that down.
Yeah, I mean, unless he's lying, which maybe Nintendo might do, but I believe him, especially with a game like this. We just spent 20 minutes talking about Tears of the Kingdom coming out just recently. And they're not doing that Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild thing. This will give it some momentum. I imagine sales will have an uptick from this game, and with Pokemon last year, I mean, it's not like there's nothing that's... And I don't think the sales include Tears of the Kingdom at all, right? Any bump that comes from that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like Nintendo knows exactly what the next system is, and it probably is ready to go, ready to be announced if they want to, but they're gonna coast as long as they can. I feel like.
Right. And it is going to be a bit of a different situation from the Switch's announcement, because they also talked about this a little, where them announcing the Switch, or the NX as it was first referred to, so early was a special case. It was because they had just announced some of their mobile efforts, and they want people to realize that they weren't completely going to pivot into the mobile market and were still going to maintain a console presence. And also it was probably because the Wii U was doing so poorly that it's not like announcing a new system was going to cannibalize sales anyways.
Exactly. Switch still selling, Wii U at that point. What was that announced? Early 2015?
I mean, frankly, did it ever start selling?
I think like the big release when NX was announced was like Pokken Tournament, like like the completely different context.
Yeah, it's just very different. So we'll see. We'll see how the Switch does. We'll see when we do eventually get a new system, if that's announced. There were other reports that said development is progressing and that product launch won't happen until next spring at the earliest, which would probably line up with what Furukawa is saying here, but we'll see. In the meantime, another thing that they were talking about was the Mario movie, because apparently no one can stop talking about that. It's just doing so well.
Too well. I'm gonna say too well.
Too
I'm
well?
gonna say it's doing too well. I'm officially on the record. It's now jump the shark of sales to too well.
Watch out, Nintendo. Tom is coming.
I am nervous.
But
Go ahead, Sam. I interrupted Sam. What were you gonna say?
Oh no! I just wanted to state that I liked the Mario movie. I wasn't on the podcast when y'all discussed it, but I liked the Mario.
good.
movie.
We have a believer.
I had fun at the Mario. I had a good time at the Mario movie. I was not offended by anything in the Mario movie aside from maybe like Beastie Boys or something. But
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but so yeah, the movie's been performing really well, and they were talking about the success a little bit more. Some basic things, basically just talking about how it's an opportunity for people of all ages, some of the revenue they're getting for that, the fact that this isn't going to completely pivot their direction in terms of development, but they are considering making more ventures in terms of visual content, which is interesting, and also kind of lines up with another interview that happened a few days later, where people had asked Eiji Aonuma, the director for the Legend of Zelda series, if he would like to see a Legend of Zelda movie, and he said essentially yes. That's not in his control whether he decides if something like that is made, but would he like to see one? Yes. Which kind of, I mean, that's interesting. Zelda is probably one of the biggest franchises that's brought up in terms of getting a movie after Mario, so it would make a lot of sense for that to be something that they would start thinking about.
it just seems impossible.
Yeah?
It just seems like, because with Mario is such a malleable character. I mean, look at his own games and how different he is as a character, from the platformers to the RPGs, to the different Mario RPGs, from Super Mario RPG to Paper Mario to Mario and Luigi. Mario's all pretty different in like the tone and the nature of the narrative and stuff. It is different in all of his games, but because he's Mario, it just works. Where like with Zelda's a lot more like slender in like aesthetic and scope and style, and like I don't know if Illumination is gonna be able to cut it.
Sam, I was talking to a friend about this exact thing, and I my point was, a Mario movie didn't have to be good to be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where a Zelda movie needs to be good to be good. Like it's a whole different level. You can't, with the Mario movie, it can just kind of be silly and dumb and fun and whatever. Everyone, have a good time. Zelda movie it's like fantasy, it's a whole different genre that I would imagine would be more difficult to pull off.
Right. I think I agree with you guys. It's definitely, you would need different components, and it has far more of a structure, like you were saying, Sam. So it's kind of harder to map that onto any other movie, like any other studio in terms of what they would do for something like that.
Unless like you got like an anime studio, right?
Maybe,
or something.
yeah.
Like Ghibli or whatever. Obviously not Ghibli literally, but like, animation is more malleable, but like the Illumination style animation seems very like, how do you make that an epic fantasy like tale?
Right. What would you guys want to see out of an eventual Mario movie? Is there anything you'd want to know in terms of like plot or characters? Whether
Do you mean Zelda? Oh
yeah,
movie?
sorry. In terms of Zelda movie, but yeah, like plot, characters. Do people actually talk? Whether it be animated, live action, etc.
I mean, my ideal would be like a Ghibli-esque like animated feature film, that is just Link walking around doing Zelda stuff. But I don't know. I mean,
Just cutting grass, attacking chickens.
yeah, I feel like I'd prefer like a television series, I guess, for Zelda.
But Tom, we already have a Zelda television series. Haven't you seen it?
Yeah.
That's fair. You know, I don't even want the Zelda movie. I want the Star Fox Thunderbird style movie. We've talked about this before. That's what I want. Or I want Donkey Kong Bongo tournament karate movie.
Live action Donkey Kong bongo music contest.
It's like Sing, but for Donkey Kong.
But with Donkey Kong characters.
Illumination, Perfect Studio, Donkey Kong Sing crossover. Okay.
That's great. Sam, is there anything you would like in terms of Zelda movie, or even just, I guess, other Nintendo properties? If there's
I
any
think a
other...
wave race movie would be pretty cool.
Yeah?
Oh, that's like a great pick. That's a great pick.
That's
I
like
agree.
Because I was thinking of because a lot of the big Nintendo series that we all love here on this podcast, like Zelda or Metroid, they're kind of complicated. Like you can't just do a Metroid movie or do a Zelda movie and just expect it to work out. But I don't know, I think a Kirby movie could be cool. Because you also got to think, Illumination, they got the bag. They got to be the ones who deliver the goods here. So I gotta also fit IP that fit their vibe. I think a Kirby movie would be cool. I think a Splatoon movie could actually be pretty cool. Any of the series
Pikmin?
Where the narrative is pretty open. Yeah, Pikmin I think could be really fun. Although probably you'd have to do Pikmin 3 or something like that. Because
I don't think it would be based on a game. But I think we'd have a character that talks though, right? Like a little kid who meets Pikmin or whatever, and it'd be like the Illumination of Dr. Seuss movie.
I mean, it could work. There's a lot of different franchises they could pull from if they wanted to make more movies. Would either of you want a Smash Brothers style crossover movie eventually? Say we get a half dozen movies from a whole bunch of different franchises. Would you want something that brings them all together?
I must admit, we've been making up things. My wish is that there is no more Nintendo movies. I don't want them. I don't want that future. I don't want my Nintendo IP to become another Marvel Cinematic Universe of film and everything else. That's what I was jokingly saying, that Mario movie sold too well or made too much money, because I am a little nervous about it becoming a pillar that distracts maybe right in the future from the game part of it.
Right. I think that's valid to an extent, although I wouldn't be too worried about it, I guess, detracting from the games, because I have a really hard time seeing Nintendo just stop focusing on those. But I do get the fear. I would not want them to start producing games based on their movie adaptations,
like Street Fighter the movie.
Yeah.
The game.
Yeah, that's exactly what came to mind. Something like that for Mario or Zelda, I would be a little afraid of.
Yeah, I can't let my one Mario game every half decade be the Mario movie.
2D Mario movie, 2D Mario game, but it's just based on the Mario movie visually. That would be interesting. Would certainly be a word for it.
Yeah, you said it. No, I'm kind of with Tom. I'm sick of IP movies in general. It's getting too much for me. I had a fun time with the Mario movie, but we can leave Smash for the video games.
Right. I actually agree with that. I think I wouldn't mind seeing more Nintendo movies, especially if they're made by different studios, so they all have kind of a different feel to them. But I wouldn't really want a Smash Brothers style movie. That would feel a little bit forced, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, unfortunately.
It might. It depends on what we see. I mean, given everything that's been happening on the Marvel side, it seems like those kind of big crossover movies might not be as common, because that hasn't really been working after Endgame has come out. So that might fall out of fashion. The
only reason I say that because of the multiverse narrative part of the Mario movie. It's there. They want it. They can do it.
They're setting it up.
Oh no.
Setting it up.
Yeah. I guess so.
Anyway.
I guess we'll just have to see. In the meantime, though, let's talk about more games. And these might be less exciting announcements because it's games not coming out when they're supposed to, sadly. So, first up on the list is Hollow Knight Silksong, the much beloved game that has yet to release.
Hollow Knight Silksong delayed. What's next, Nicolas? You're gonna tell me the sky is blue?
You're gonna tell me
water's wet?
You're gonna tell me there's no Switch Pro?
Now, to be fair, the game didn't exactly get delayed. Team Cherry was working on it, and they were planning internally to launch it within the first half of 2023. They never made an actual release date announcement, to my understanding.
It was in the Xbox game showcase in 2022, in
Right.
which they claimed all games would be coming out in the last 12 months. Although their first parties
yes.
didn't hit that, so I'm not going to hold Team Cherry to that standard
Right.
either.
Well, regardless of that, the game's not coming out first half 2023 anymore. But development is still continuing. Apparently, everything is still going well. So, look forward to whenever that comes out. And honestly, I'm just glad that they actually are providing an update, because I think that's what really drove fans up the wall in terms of the wait for Silksong, is that there were so many long periods of time where they just never mentioned anything. Like, not even the smallest, like, oh yes, development is continuing, we'll have more to talk about later, just nothing. So the fact that they're actually speaking up is good.
Now, this is a game initially conceived from a Kickstarter bonus game. Like, it was supposed to be just a thing, right?
I believe it was supposed to be a DLC for the original Hollow Knight.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm expecting, and I know I've covered the preview stuff for this game. I'm expecting not like I just what I can see through the previews. Not that they have to do this as a fan. I'm expecting this game to be like we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom, just unfathomably larger than the original game. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be an insanely big game and complex, systematically intricate game. I know. In previews, they one of the creators compared it to Castlevania, like Lords of Shadows, and just how you beat the game one way and then the game inverts on you and you have to do it again, and there's this big tower. They kind of compared it to that scale, and it's just I think they're just going for it. They're like, look, we're gonna make a game. We're gonna make it the way we want to if we can afford to, and we can. So we're gonna do it this way.
If I remember correctly, that's actually something they had talked about, and part of the reason why the game took so long is that Hollow Knight is just such a praised indie. It's one of the most well-known Metroidvania in recent years, and the team felt a lot of pressure to try and make something that was just better than that. And because of that, it's that kind of mentality of, no, we always have to do more. We've done this much, but this isn't enough. We have to go further and further and further, which has led to the game just taking so long in terms of development.
Yeah, do you guys know how long the original Hollow Knight was in development for? How many years?
I'm not
Did they ever say in an interview or
Well,
something?
it's a little vague because I think it initially was a game jam thing where the character came from. So it is a vague time span.
Yeah, the game jam was from 2013.
Yeah, and then they announced a Kickstarter, and it was a few years after that the game came out on Steam.
Yeah, the Kickstarter was 2014, I believe, and then the game released in 2017. So probably somewhere between 3 to 4 years of development.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so they've been cooking.
Yeah,
on Silksong.
I mean, they've been working on that longer than the Zelda team's been working on Breath of the Wild, on Tears of the Kingdom. So, not to raise expectations, but man, this game is probably going to be pretty darn good when it comes out.
And I take your time. It doesn't matter, right? As Miyamoto once said, blah 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 blah, right?
Take your time, stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm totally fine with this. Not sad. Not sad. I wish I want to play it, but I'm gonna have my hands full for a little while.
Just a little bit.
I think this is a smart decision on their end. to just keep the game under, until there's a little more breathing room, perhaps.
It'll come when it comes. As long as they actually give semi-regular updates on the game's status so that the fans don't go too feral, I think it'll be fine. Moving on from that, the other delay we have to talk about is for Hogwarts Legacy. Yes, that game already released on every other system, but on Switch, it was slated to release July 25th, and now it's been delayed to November. Game is still supposed to come out, but they're just working on it a little bit longer to create the best possible experience. I still don't understand how this is real and how this isn't a cloud version, to be honest.
Just cancel it.
Yeah, so let me ask, like, let me just ask it straight. This coming out or not? Is this gonna keep getting delayed till we just forget about it? Or is it actually gonna come out?
I think they have enough resources because this is Warner Brothers, right? Like, if they want this to come out, it will come out. It's not like something like, say, what was the Marvel game that we talked about a few weeks ago that ended up getting canceled? The like tactical RPG Marvel game, Dark Suns, I think.
Midnight Suns.
Midnight Suns. Thank you. That got delayed, but that also didn't do particularly well in sales, to my understanding. So it's not like there was too much of a cost there. But Hogwarts Legacy has done very well. It's reviewed pretty well. A lot of fans of the game have really liked it. So I think there's more of an incentive to try and release a Switch version and just kind of grab that particular audience.
Yeah, but just make a cloud version, right? Like, just go for the cloud.
Yes.
This is a Watch Dogs Wii U moment, okay? This game has no business on the Switch. And I have difficulty, I don't know, imagining how it would work natively, because they're developing it for the Switch, for the Switch for real. And it's not a game that, like, I don't know, it's a very taxing game on modern hardware. So, I don't know. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I played the game when it came out on my computer, and it ran pretty horribly on my 2070 Super graphics card. So that definitely does not bode well for the Switch. However, I will say this game didn't just sell well; it sold extremely well. It's already outsold Elden Ring, which I think is at like 17 million.
Isn't Elden Ring at like 20 million?
Yeah.
Oh my!
Harry Potter's a big deal.
Right.
Potter's
Yeah.
a big deal. The most recent number I can find is from May 5th, 15 million. Topped out at 15 million, and I'm sure that's going to continue to grow. So there's definitely huge, and with the Switches, as we talked about earlier, 125 million unit user base. They definitely want to get this game out there on Switch, because there's a lot of people who are casual gamers who maybe don't have a Xbox or a PlayStation, but they do have a Switch because they got Animal Crossing during the pandemic, or myriad of reasons. They like Mario Kart. Their friends got convinced them to get it.
You're so right. Like, you're like actually smart, and I'm just like, cancel it. Like, this is like, you're so right. Anyway, continue.
I just say this because this is why this game is like, no, we're totally doing it, guys. We're totally gonna do it. And I will say this to the game's defense of maybe being not too horrible. Typically, the third-party games that get Switch ports where it's a dedicated port like this that comes out months or years after the fact, like Witcher 3 or
Doom,
thank you. Typically pretty high quality. Typically pretty high quality ports for the system.
Yeah, but there are games also like it's not Doom, it's the other one. Wolfenstein 2 native port, but really struggled. Like, the newer and bigger that the games get, the more like recent they are. It still like wasn't. It doesn't feel like enough. Like, it still doesn't feel like enough.
Yeah, I'd definitely wait. You gotta wait for reviews on this. Wait for the port reports on this one before you drop your 60 bones.
60? You think it's 60?
Oh, will it be 70 on Switch? You really think
I
they're gonna
can't
make it
imagine
70
they
on
would do
Switch?
70 on Switch.
They did 70 on every other console, and Zelda ripped the Band-Aid off for the Switch.
I mean,
But hold on, do we know what Pikmin 4's price is?
That is 60.
That's the real
60.
gun. That's the real smoking gun.
Yeah, but that's Nintendo. We're talking about Warner Brothers here.
But oh man, I don't know if people are gonna bite for a third party. I mean, Zelda. I mean, people were nomming up a storm online about Zelda being $70, and that's Zelda, and they bought it anyways. But they were still begrudgingly upset about it.
But
So
is this the first third party $70 game on Switch from a game that came out on other consoles at 70? Is this the first Switch game of that kind? I feel like it would be, right?
oh man,
if
if it is, that port better be good.
I don't know, maybe a sports game, maybe? Is a sports game?
I don't think anything
we
else
don't-
is $70 on Switch.
What's
Yeah.
what's MLB The Show 23?
Is but is that game 70?
No, it's 60 on.
Yeah,
on-
but is that game 60 period?
Yes.
Yeah. And on
Even on
other
PS5?
systems.
Oh,
It says so on PS5. MLB The Show 23 is $69.
okay.
Wow.
But on Switch and on last gen, so how it
Oh,
works is
last
all the last gen systems, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, are typically still at 60.
So this will be 60 then. Okay. I don't know. Okay.
We'll see. I still don't know why it's not a cloud version. I wonder if that's just optics for sales, but regardless, this is still going to come out. Wait for it a little bit longer, but enjoy wizarding when you can. Now let's move on to what came out this week. Let's talk about some of the games that were announced this week. Just some of things in terms of release dates and whatnot. First on the list, Dordogne, I think is how you would pronounce that. I believe this was a little game showed off during one of the last several indie worlds, and it's like a little 3D watercolor adventure game. You're a little girl that kind of is journeying around the French countryside and just kind of talking to people, dealing with their problems, collecting photos. Just very kind of chill, relaxing experience. Personally, this one's kind of interesting to me because I grew up in France, so having a game that kind of has this representation of the French countryside, even if it's not exactly where I grew up, it's still something that's pretty close to me, and I'm curious how exactly that's going to be represented. And it's also just fun to see that in some form of media, because it's not something I get to see very often in a video game.
Yeah, this is totally, I remember this being announced, totally Boku no Natsuyasumi vibes, right? Summer vacation in the countryside of some, and some of these pre-rendered background screens, and you're talking with people and just kind of experiencing life, and so that's always good, and that's a great influence to take from. That's a rare type of genre we don't get very much. But this one does seem to be more heavily like narrative based. There's seems to be more of a linear kind of structured narrative to it. Maybe even some more drama. But yeah, it looks gorgeous. And a game like that, we need more games like that. I wonder if it is like explicitly inspired by that, or it's just me reading into it.
I mean, possibly. I think these are French developers, and I think France has a pretty big there's a lot of Japanese culture that people are fond of in France, so I could absolutely see that being a direct influence. Regardless, I think the game looks great. Just visually, like you mentioned, it's also beautiful. This will now be releasing June 13th. So we have a final release date for that. Look forward to it in a few weeks. Second on the list is Hello Good Boy. This is a wholesome adventure game, which, as you can probably guess by the name, is based around a boy and his dog. And I don't know that I really need to say anything else to sell you on it, because there's a good boy.
There's also wire puzzles from Spider-Man PS4 in it, and so not sure about that. But other than that, yeah, there's a lot of good boys in this game.
Well, one specific good boy. I think there might be some other good folk, goose folk.
Good folk.
But yeah, it looks cute. A little dog. There's some light puzzle solving. It's an adventure game. It's going to be releasing on May 25th this month. It looks real cute. I don't know if either of you have dogs or are big dog people, but I think for anyone out there who is, just having a game where you have an actual puppy dog talking to you is already just super enticing.
Yeah, this is, since you can't pet the dog still in Tears of the Kingdom, spoilers, this might fill that hole. I don't know why they won't let you do that.
But yeah, so next on the list is Fights in Tight Spaces, which already I love the name, but this is also a super cool looking game. It's a deck building, like tactical RPG that has a sort of super hot aesthetic in terms of how the characters are represented and moving on screen. And you're basically playing an RPG where you are John Wick. And you're right.
So I can speak to this game. So this game's been on PC for a while. It's super interesting. As you said, it's got a super hot aesthetic, like very like pitch black character silhouettes in like a white like office or arena, and yeah, basically you more or less got it right. Yeah, it's a turn-based RPG where you're given a deck of cards, and each deck of cards represents a move or ability that you're able to perform with your character. So basically, you select your move, and then it kind of plays out. I believe it will play out in like real time with the other enemies on the map doing their move, and it basically, yeah, you're kind of like choreographing a John Wick fight with a deck of cards. So it's like a bit of like Slay the Spire meets like super hot. It's pretty cool. I've seen some gameplay online. I've yet to actually give it a shot for myself.
Yeah,
but it does look very, very cool.
I believe, does it have a feature where once you finish an encounter, you can play back everything you've done in it in real time?
Yeah, you play it back in real time, and it all goes. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, just very cool concept, very stylish. It's also the kind of game that just works very well on Switch, being like a little portable experience with all these bite-sized fights. Looks very neat, and that's coming to the system on May 25th, so only a few weeks for that. Last, in terms of announcements, is Cyber Citizen Shockman. So, if you've heard of this game before, that's because it is a TurboGrafx 16 game that is being ported onto Switch, and in doing so is also releasing in the West for the very first time. It's an action platformer. It comes with a few, usual features that you'd expect from an old game re-release, so things like a CRT filter, fast-forward features, rewind, all the typical things. In general, I just think this is neat because it's always cool when we get these older games that have never had a chance to come outside of Japan that finally release on modern systems. I think a month or two ago, there was something similar with Assault Suits Vulcan. It was an SNES game that similarly was only in Japan, and it got a Western localization that came to Switch, and that was the first time the game had released there. Or, correction, it was the first time the game had released completely uncensored. The original game had gotten like some modifications in terms of the script, but here, that was the first time Western fans had been able to experience the game, quote-unquote, purely. And similarly here, this is the first time people in the West will be able to just genuinely experience this game.
Love it.
Yeah, I love this. We definitely need to see more retro TurboGrafx and other consoles get their games out there on Switch and other modern platforms as well. I'm a big fan of being able to play old stuff on modern hardware.
Well, and PC Engine and TurboGrafx is like a big blind spot too for the West. Like a huge important legacy of the games industry is like just missing.
Yeah, so this releasing is just super cool, and hopefully we get more things in line with this. It's coming out this week, May 19th, so...
And the price? Super reasonable and respectable at $5.99.
Yep. Yeah, it's the kind of price you would want from these older games, where it's enough for them to still be worth, releasing, but it's not so much that it's just asking way too much from the consumer.
Yeah, Vulcan I think was more expensive, but that was M2, I believe. So there's a premium you're paying for when they take up a project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is super neat. That's all. That's most of the bigger game announcements this week. There hasn't been too much because, well, there was something else that happened this week that took up a lot of people's attentions, as we mentioned before. Similarly, there also have not been too many big game releases this week because I don't think there's many people out there that would want to be completely overshadowed by Tears of the Kingdom. But there's still a few brave souls that put out games this week that we can talk about. So first is Despot's Game. And honestly, I don't know what to think of this one. It just looks very unique. It's a strategy action adventure. It seems almost Pikmin-like in terms of how you gather a whole bunch of smaller minions and you go fight these monsters in a dungeon. It has a pretty neat aesthetic. It's a little bit on the horror side, I guess. It's a roguelite, so for fans of the genre, this is something else you can look at. And like I said, it does seem to have a pretty unique premise.
Look, I didn't know what to expect. I've never heard of this before. I'm just looking at this. This looks awesome. Like visually, like it looks really good. And apparently, Steam agrees, as this game's been out there, and it's reviewed pretty well on there. So this actually is like a real release that unfortunately came out this week, because I think this is actually like worth checking out.
Yeah, on Steam, it's referred to as a dystopian battle simulator. So
I love the look. I love the look of it.
Mm-hmm.
The Switch description also has a fun choice line. My game is about strategy and praying to RNGesus, not mashing buttons. So if that sounds up your alley, Despo's Game.
Yep. Next up on the list is TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 3, which I've never heard of these racing games before.
I gotta be honest, this game's not as good as a TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2.
It really went downhill with 3. All the microtransactions and DLC.
They really took it too far.
Well, did you hear the director left? And then there was a lot of company turmoil.
Yeah, the Osaka team, man, you can't trust them.
The Osaka team.
Okay.
How rude of us. People worked very hard in this game.
Yeah. I'm sure there's an audience for this game that's very happy it's released and that the devs put in a lot of effort on it. I don't exactly know what it is. It seems like a motorcycle racing game. If you're looking for something in the genre, this might be something for you. Maybe the franchise is more well known to just the fans of this genre. I'm not particularly well versed in racing games, so I can't know for sure. But this is pretty much a full price release. It's $50, so I can imagine there's probably a decent amount of content here.
Mixed reviews on Steam.
I will say, I imagine the fans are on Series X or PS5 or Steam with this game because it is like a simulation racing game. And I've talked about it before on this podcast that when I want to play simulation racer, I want to feel the grit and the grind and the crunch and the grunt, and you're not going to get that on the Switch, unfortunately.
I want to scrape my leg on the gravel.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm watching some gameplay on Steam right now of the first person mode, and I'm like, yeah, this actually looks really awesome. But I don't expect the Switch to be able to handle the 200 kilometers of open roads.
Fair enough. Still something to look at if maybe you're interested in this style of game. I don't know that there are that many simulation racers on the system, so if you want something new, something to look at, here you go. Third thing I want to mention, Murderous Muses. This is an FMV adventure game made by the same people who made the Shapeshifting Detective, if you know that. Very neat game. I know I've watched the Shapeshifting Detective played, and it was just very well done. In terms of a modern FMV, it was actually very immersive and interesting. This is, like I said, it was made from a similar team. It has a few more adventure components to it in terms of how you're actually exploring the environment. And other than that, I mean, it's an FMV game, so
yeah, this actually looks pretty
niche.
Yeah, I'm watching the trailer right now. This actually looks pretty cool because it's like it's an FMV mixed with like these playable first person sections where you like walk around and solve puzzles and like interact with other FMV objects. It looks pretty neat.
Right. The fact that all the FMV sections are contained to these sort of like interview-esque sections kind of makes them feel more tied together. It makes it less contrast less with the actual gameplay because it's not this weird jarring shift. It's kind of contained to its own section of the game. Yeah. So those were the recent releases for this week. And now we move on to the final segment of the show, Refresh Rate. In other words, let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom some more. First, I do want to mention, has anyone played anything other than Tears of the Kingdom this week that they would like to talk about?
No, in fact, I've had I don't know if you guys get this when you're excited for a big game that's coming out, or just really just want the new game. I just was not able to get involved in anything this week.
I played 3,000 games for 2 minutes trying to trying to be happy until this game came out.
Yeah.
I mean, I did play Zelda 1 this week for the video that came out, but. We've talked about Zelda 1 and 2 enough on this podcast.
Well, joke's on you,
apologies.
because I'm going to talk about A Link to the Past.
Well, that's Zelda 3, so you're good.
Zelda 3?
Yeah, well, I did, like you guys, in the day or two preceding Tears of the Kingdom, I really didn't play anything. But I did finish Link to the Past this week, because I did want to try and get all 3 of the first Zelda games done before Tears of the Kingdom came out, because I've never actually beaten any of them. And Link to the Past was the last one, and I just finished it, so I was all prepped and ready for Tears of the Kingdom.
Gotta say, I really respect your journey on this, Nicolas, because you said you were gonna do it, and this was only a couple weeks ago, and you put your mind to it, and you did it, and you did all 3 of them, and I'm very impressed by that.
Thank you.
That's a rare quality these days to go back.
Thanks. I was a little terrified when Future Redeemed was essentially shadow dropped. I wouldn't have the time to do this. But thankfully that didn't take as long as I thought it would. Anyways, enough about any other silly games.
Wait, what did you think? What did you think of
it? Was good. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a classic Zelda game. I think it definitely holds up better than Zelda 1 to me, or at least it just appeals to me personally more. I think I still would have enjoyed it more if I wasn't under a bit of a time crunch, because there were a few instances where rather than finding something organically, I just resorted to looking it up online because I just didn't have the time to be running around for several hours. But overall, I did really enjoy it. I thought it was really fun. I'm a big fan of the final boss's gimmick, not just being I turn invisible. Haha.
Ganon's a little lame in Zelda 1.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, overall I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun little game, and I'm glad that I finally got that checked off the backlog.
Yeah, well, we also awesome. Like, how was the experience overall? Like these first 3 Zelda, how do you feel like this has recontextualized the series for you, or recontextualized video games for you in any way? Because I felt like when I played, especially the first game and then even the second game, Sam and I are notoriously the biggest Zelda 2 fans in the world probably, and they really made me see a lot of games differently. I don't know. Did you feel different? Anyway, yeah. Did you feel differently?
I think that was definitely the case for Zelda 1. That one definitely made me kind of appreciate a lot of the things that came later and how that game was one of the first ones to do them. Zelda 2, I'm really glad I played, because I think that might still have been the one I enjoyed the most out of the 3.
Oh, I love hearing.
Yeah, I figured you would like that.
you gotta. I don't know. I don't want to take any credit, but I think people don't hear enough good things about the game where people go in ready to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I was hyping it up for you, and I don't know, maybe that helps.
I think it's a game.
The mindset.
It's a game where you definitely need a little bit of assistance now and then just to have an idea of what to do and where. But just the uniqueness of it compared to every single other Zelda experience just makes it that much more interesting. And seeing some elements from that game that ended up coming back in later games also just kind of makes you appreciate it that much more, because it's this niche little black sheep of the franchise that still has managed to have an influence on future titles.
Yeah, I love Zelda 2 so much. Oh my goodness.
Well,
Yeah,
looks like we're all Zelda 2 enjoyers now.
We're taking over. It's a virus at this
It's a
point.
movement.
It's a movement. I agree. I agree, though. I think it is a movement. And I would argue that, like, not until Breath of the Wild has combat felt as dynamic as Zelda 2. And I think the jump button is part of that, right? The jump buttons in those two games, because you have this freedom of combat. And so I think, obviously, Breath of the Wild has a lot of Zelda 1 in it, right? But Zelda 2 in there, too. Don't forget. Congrats, Nicolas. Again, the backlog, the retro game, a lot of people just ignore it. And I think... I respect the journey.
Thanks. Anyways, as much as I could talk more about the older Zelda games, there's a recent one that I think we still want to rant about a little bit more. And so this is probably when we're going to get a little bit more into spoilers. So if you don't want to hear anything about the game in terms of mechanics or story or anything, tap out now. This is the last thing we're going to talk about for the rest of the episode. So
Yeah, and I would say, like, I would say, I think I'm the farthest into the game. I'm probably, to give a real number, I'm probably like 15 to 20 hours into it.
Mm-hmm.
But that number is a very weird number because I've probably seen cutscenes that everyone's seen because I picked a different cutscene, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, so it's a vague 15 hours, but this is for people who've been playing the game.
right.
You know, since it came out.
I mean-
I would say that's your safe. None of us have beaten the game. We didn't get it early. So we're probably just as far as anyone who's playing the game a lot since it came out.
Yeah, I will say, I think one of the coolest things about this game, and I actually experienced this last night when I was talking to a friend, is the very, like, school ground kind of, oh, where did you go? What did you do? What did you find kind of aspect to it. Because there's just so much to do in the game that it's very easy to kind of fall into that, where it's just, you go in completely different directions, you experience things in completely different ways, and there's just so much kind of cross-sharing of information. I haven't experienced that in a game in pretty much, like, since I was a kid, so that is super fun.
Yeah, first thing I want to ask both of you, that opening session, because Nicholas, you're not as far, right? Like the Sky Island,
Yes.
right?
To be clear, I've gone down to the surface. I've started going towards the west, towards Rito Village. I haven't gone there yet because I got distracted.
I'm not even at Rito Village. I refuse. They want me to go to Rito Village. They want me to become
Tom.
a newspaper reporter. I refuse.
I have gone...
You and I are the same. You and I are the same people. I'm like, no, I'm going east.
Well,
Nah.
I can tell the game wants me there.
I wasn't done though because I started going that way, but then I looped around the entire rest of the map going clockwise. So I've gotten
respect
almost
that.
every tower.
Good.
And I haven't gotten to Rito
okay.
Village yet.
Ooh.
I am a tower player. I can't have a map I need to get every tower.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have a map with I hate the black maps. You know, like I want to fill it in. I need to fill it in. So I
You must
agree. I'm
hate
with
the
you.
depths.
Oh, I love it. I know, I love it. It's a very incentivizing thing to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's awesome, Tom. The way I do the maps is I try to do as much as I can in the region, and it's like,
Oh, no.
and it's like, then I'll get the map, and then I'll go around again and double check everything.
Oh, that's really good. Oh, anyway, what I was gonna ask is, how do we feel about Sky Island, the Great Sky Island, whatever it's called?
Yeah.
That opening, the Great Plateau equivalent.
Yeah.
The Great Plateau 2, like narratively, like story premise, I think
Honestly,
I want to hear about.
I don't like it as much as the original. I think this is part of the reason why at the very start of the game I was kind of not iffy, but I wasn't quite as big on it as the original because I don't think the Great Sky Island is quite as good as the Great Plateau. And I think I narrowed that down to like 3-ish reasons. One of which is the Great Plateau is just, it's flat. It's very easy to get a lay of the land. It's sectioned off into a whole bunch of very distinct and blatant biomes. So you always have to have an idea of like what's where roughly. And it makes it very easy to kind of just navigate and get used to the game. In contrast, the Sky Islands are not that. There are a whole bunch of changes in elevation. There's not a huge variety in biomes, so it's just a lot harder to kind of get your bearings at the start of the game. I think that kind of works against it in terms of it being like an opening area. Secondly, I guess, is that the Great Plateau, it's flat, and the Sky Islands are not, and that means that the paraglider feels so much more important for the Sky Islands than it did for the plateau. And you don't get the paraglider until so much later.
Nicolas, I felt the exact same way, brother. I felt the exact same way. Specifically, the section in which you get the final, I'm pretty sure it's Recalls, the fourth one you get, the final one you get at the top of the ice peak. You have to go from the top of the ice peak all the way back to the Tower of Time, and you can't warp from the
shrines. Yeah, you have to go back there manually.
So you have to walk back there, and it's like, oh my goodness. So you have to find a way to you have to do some stuff you just never have to worry about for the rest of the game of like, oh, how do I go about descending this
Walk up
mountain?
to the end of the ledge and just press A.
So, I mean, I agree with all your points, but that's funny because I that last trek back, I had one of those glider birds.
Yes.
That took me right back to the time island.
Well, what it is, I think, is you ascend is the third ability you get, and then you go back to the Temple of Time, you get Recall, then you go back to the very starting area, you get that shrine, and then from the shrine you glide over to the Temple of Time again.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have just totally missed the bird, because I totally hot-footed it back the way I came.
Which is fine. I mean, there's, again, what I like about the game is so many different ways to attach it. But I agree, and I wanted to, I think people that play this game and get into the Sky Island and are disappointed, I don't even blame them, right? Because it's the game slowing you down so much from Breath of the Wild. Where Great Plateau, you wake up, you go. It's a clean slate, it's new Zelda, it's done. You just go, talk to the old man, boom. Where this one, and I don't envy this task from the developers. We have to uninstall Breath of the Wild in the player.
Yeah.
We have to uninstall and make them have to use these new tools. So no paraglider, but verticality, because you're just going to rely on the paraglider the whole time, right? We want you to learn these tools. We want you to make little weird hooks that go onto rails and swinging around, or use the bird. And so a lot of that first island, I'm pressing wrong buttons and falling and dying, and because there's all this uninstalling of Breath of the Wild that almost hurts a little bit, right? It's almost painful. I don't know. That's how I felt. But it's necessary, I think, too, because part of the thing I noticed is the more I gave myself in up to and submitted to the Ultra Hand, specifically Ultra Hand, I'm not gonna build vehicles. I'm not gonna spend an hour building some stupid. The more I gave myself into it, and then they succeed as a vehicle, or even if they succeed in a failing way, it works but it's horrible, that's where the game, I think, really shines in its own unique way. And without all of your Breath of the Wild tools in the Skyland, I don't know, I just feel like there's a reason for that clunky kind of opening, that kind of disjunction, that I totally get if someone's turned off by it.
Right.
They're not thinking about it that way.
I think it's also just for how kind of tough it was to get used to things at first, and how I do think the Great Sky Island doesn't exactly compare to the Great Plateau in terms of how effective of a tool it is at first. The more you play the game, just the more it opens up, the more you find, the more you figure out, and it just kind of snowballs very quickly into just being so fun. Because you first get down to the surface, and it's just overwhelming the amount of things you can do. You can go back to explore the Sky Islands, you can go into the depths, and that's basically another map that is literally the size of the surface. You can go west, you can go east, you can
do anything.
Yeah. Person's telling you to go to the lab, other person's telling you to go to the stable, other person's telling you to go there. There's so much. There's just so much. It's an overload of information.
And on that point, Nicolas, about like, you know, people being everywhere telling you what to do, there is like way more like main quest style, like talk to this person, do a little activity or help them out with something, but it's actually an important part of like the narrative that you need to do. Where I felt like the narrative and the story sections of like anything to do with the Divine Beast in Breath of the Wild, very hands off, few and far between sections, where I feel like there's a lot of small, simple main quest objectives.
Yeah.
In this,
it's a bit more guided to kind of help you along in your journey. Like, oh, you want to find this, you can go over here, or here. Here's how this mechanics work. Here's how this mechanic works. Just like do this little side quest.
There's also like a matter of, and we were talking about this before, of like there's more reason to a lot of the items and a lot of exploring because of that. Like there's so many quests that are like game spanning. Like it used to be like Korok seeds, but now there's like 80 different equivalents of Korok seeds.
There's so many.
You know what I mean? Like these really long spanning, game spanning, collect million of these.
It was insane. Like you find the bubble gems in the caves, and that was already
gems,
something. Then I went down to the depths. I found like a schematic for a vehicle that I got from like a Yiga driving a tank. Then I go up in the sky. I find like an old document. Then I go, like, I fly from one island to another. I find, like, a sage's emblem, and I have no idea what any of those things are.
And you still have the Korok seeds, and then you upgrade your batteries.
Right, there's all that.
Zonai stuff.
Oh.
And so, by the time I found, like, the Bubble Gem quest with those freaks, those two freaks, like, I was like, oh, this game wants every like thing to feel important. Every interaction with an enemy or item pickup to feel important in some way. And speaking of the depths, like I was afraid of the depths. I didn't want anything to do with the depths. I'm like, I can't handle the depths.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm overwhelmed by just like the Ultra Hand. I'm not ready for the depths. But then, you know, there's like Ocarina-esque wells, right? In this game. And they unlock and I'm like, oh, cute, a well. Well, the one well I found sent me into the depths, just straight for the depths. So I was like, I'm looking for the wells. This won't be a big engagement of my time. There'll be like a rock in here with an ore, because that's what most wells are. And then here I am falling into the depths, not knowing. And so I was like, that was such a great surprise. Instead of like choosing to go to the depths, it took me there on against my will, and in total surprise. So that was like. Things like that too, like the overwhelming, the game spanning collection. I think that spans the environment really helps. I don't know, make everything feel important.
Right, God, it's and like you're talking about the well. There's so many things in this game that you just kind of you see and just like oh
yeah,
like oh no.
There's a speaking of there's a I don't know if either of you met this NPC. She might be in Kakariko Village or something. I don't even know. I don't even know where. Who knows where, right? There's a million. She's like a well investigator. That's what she calls herself. And she's another one of these game spanning like NPC quests to like find every well and come back to me. And you get like rupees and stuff. Yeah. And she kind of confirms like there's like 50 some odd wells in the game. And so like there's that too, like these location huntings. As well with the wells specifically for her.
Yeah, and also there's like I came across some like random NPC in the middle of the middle of nowhere, like actually, and I think she was getting attacked by like an enemy or whatever, and I came in to beat the enemy, and she was like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm actually like looking for clothes. Here's X marks the spot on 3 pieces of clothes." And I'm like, "Yo, thank you. You're random. I don't know you." Like,
well, same. I keep finding these old maps.
Yes. Oh,
they just say there's an X here.
I also found recently a treasure map that leads to like a special treasure in the depths that I still have to get to. Like, there's just so much.
Does anyone else feel like the depths feel like the Nether realm?
Yes, absolutely. There's the mining for resources. Like, it's definitely that.
And lighting up with the arrows, like, because it's so dark in there, or the glow effect. Man, we're like not even okay. Okay, I want to talk about shrines. I did not think shrines would be back
Yeah,
in this
I
game.
didn't
I thought
either.
they were going to be done with the shrines, and their shrines are back. I want to know how we feel about them. Any interesting shrines you came encounter with, but first off, my opinion on the shrines. Just like start the conversation an opinion, right? I think the abilities in this game provide such better puzzle design. I think the puzzles in the shrines are like you could argue the puzzles in the shrines of Breath of the Wild are not good. Like for the most part, they are kind of boring or don't work, right? Like the gyro ones. With these abilities, the shrines now I think are genuinely super engaging puzzles that I look forward to every
Right.
time, and I'm so glad they're back in this game because of these abilities. So anyway, that's my like starting opinion. How do we all feel?
I feel a bit differently about
Okay.
the shrines that I've done so far, because I definitely would agree with you that the tools, this wave, this new era Sheikah tools, recall and ascend and ultra hand and all that. Definitely, while they're definitely better for puzzle solving, all the puzzles I've used them in have felt extremely linear. As in, I feel like, oh, this was the only solution to this. Where in Breath of the Wild, I feel like a lot of the puzzles in Breath of the Wild are very non-linear puzzles. They didn't really give a crap how you got to the solution, other than you just got there. Where in this, it's like, no, you're gonna do it this specific way, or the shrine just serves as like, oh yeah, this is basically just a tutorial, bruh. And I'm like, oh man, this is not why I liked. This is not I liked the
so funny.
non-linearity of the puzzle.
This is so funny because you must be smarter than me, because I will come into a puzzle room and I'm like already like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Nicolas, I wonder if you've done this specifically. I will ultra hand an object and just hold it forward as far as I can and hold it there, right? And then really quickly bring it back and then recall it, so then I can like have it like accessible to then when I recall it, it'll go back and it'll stay where I need to go, and then I'll run around to the other end and then ultra hand it while we're in recall. And that was definitely not how you're supposed to do it, but it's the only way I knew I could. So
Yeah.
Sam, I think I have solved more puzzles out of sequence in this game than I ever did in Breath of the Wild, all 120, because of these tools.
Yeah.
I don't know, Nick, go ahead.
I think that's part of why I think Recall is like the coolest ability, at least to me, it's like the coolest conventional ability to ever be in a Zelda game because of things like that. There's so many cool little applications you can do with it for how, I guess, fundamentally basic it is. It just serves to make a lot of the puzzles super interesting.
Well, it's because while recall is active, you can still use your other abilities. If you were limited, but no, you can use Ultra Hand while that object's in recall. You can use your weapons. You can whatever, right?
Yeah.
While it's in recall.
There was a super cool moment where I was in a shrine and you had like one of those glider things. And basically I'd managed to get to the end, but I hadn't gotten the treasure chest. And so I backtracked a little and I saw that the treasure chest was on top of a ledge way above where I would have been able to reach it. And there was a fan somewhere nearby that you were supposed to use to get like a boost from the glider to get all the way to the end of the shrine. And so I saw the fan, I'm like, oh, I used the fan, float upwards, managed to get the treasure chest, and I couldn't because the fan doesn't take you high enough. So then I figured, well, I guess I have to glide up to it. But the way it was set up, I couldn't get the glider to go far enough to reach the chest. So I was like, how do I do that? Because I can't get the fan on the glider, because I can't bring the fan back because the glider will have already fallen off the ledge. So I racked my brain a little, and I realized I can put the fan on the glider, recall the glider, it'll bring the entire thing back with the fan, and then I can go back from that top ledge and get to the chest because I'll have more momentum. And that just made me feel like the smartest person alive.
Well, when I sequence break, I feel like an idiot, but I love it. Like it's a funny idiot. Like I'm such a dingus for this. So that's funny you say that, Sam. And I genuinely think, and I'm not even joking. I think like you are smarter. I think when it comes to that, because I'll see a puzzle, and especially water, and again anything building a vehicle. Like I'm like, how can I get around this? That's like how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
And also, it sounds like too, well, definitely you, Nicholas, because you said you hit the whole map to fill it out. And Tom probably might be the same for you. All the shrines I've done for the most part have been in the starting surface area.
Very
around
true.
Hyrule
That's a good
Castle.
point.
there were lots of
So-
tutorial
so-
ones there. Yeah.
There's definitely shrines I've done where it's just like, this is just a tutorial straight up, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But there's definitely been some where it's not actively tutorialized, but I'm like, okay, clearly the solution is this. And it didn't really seem like, based on what was in the room, that there'd be too many like different things that you can do to make it happen. But I have a feeling that when I spread out from the center and the shrines maybe start getting a little more complex, I could see it being more open to, or I can see the solutions just feeling less obvious.
Right.
Well, and they also just get longer. The shrines sometimes have four.
Oh,
like
they're
4
so
or 5
long.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
long in this game.
I am surprised, and it makes sense because the progression of your health and your stamina was tied to the shrine, so it is a really important part of like character progression. And it's the same here with the same boring long same cutscene that I skip every time. But I'm overwhelmed by, not overwhelmed, but I'm just very pleased that I just feel like Magnesis and bombs and cryosis, like I think they ran out of interesting ways to use that in puzzles, where these abilities do feel like they can do anything.
Yeah. They make you
in
feel
the shrines.
simultaneously like the smartest and also the stupidest person alive.
I can't tell you how many times I went, oh, this is kindergarten stuff. Get the kindergarten cop in here because we got some kindergartners. Oh, what? Oh, what? How do I? Oh no! Like it was. Oh, like that was like me every time.
Like I have
Just,
to
like,
rethink my entire like basic understanding of physics.
Yeah, I don't know. Did anyone play the baseball shrine?
Yes.
I literally was like doing everything that you were. This is like a linear thing, Sam, but it's set up in a way that you don't think it is. And so I'm like trying a billion different things, and then I realized at one point, like, oh, it's baseball, and it's like the easiest
I
shrine
saw
in the
the same
game.
reaction from several people online. I actually managed to get that one without too much trouble because I noticed the way that the things were swinging, and the way the stakes were. So you could kind of like dig a stake into the like hammer sort of swimming thing, and get that to move the ball.
Right.
So I figured that out relatively fast, but it was still a super cool application of the mechanics.
Yeah. So I don't know. Okay, I'm glad we feel like, I think Sam plays a game in an interesting way, and I respect the way of like just trying to 100% each area. But yeah, I think we've explored maybe out further and gotten some different shrines. But
Yeah, I think the last main thing I want to bring up is the enemy variety. Well, I guess also we can talk about the story a little bit.
I would like to talk about story too,
Yeah.
because I'm curious how much you've engaged with the tier system.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so you haven't. Okay, so
I assume that's something tied to main story progression or like the dungeons or something. I haven't gone to any of the dungeons.
I haven't seen a dungeon
Okay.
yet. That's true. I'm still I don't know. I don't know where the dungeons are. I've been hearing about pirates as well. I haven't
Yes,
seen the pirates
somewhere in
yet.
the southeast.
No. So, Nicholas, do you mind if this is very early on?
Sure,
spoiler,
go ahead.
But the tiers there's tiered sequences in the crop circles.
Oh,
And
those,
this is-
like the memories. Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
I've
they're the
done the
memory.
first one of those. Yeah,
Yeah, so they're just memory. Okay, so you're that far.
Yes.
Okay, they're just memories. So it's interesting one that they did that again.
yeah. I don't know that I like that.
I'm a little disappointed in that, I must say, because I didn't love the memories. I didn't love the like non-linear.
It does feel like a little bit.
But
of
the game's non-linear, though.
yeah, but it still feels like a sort of a cheap way to deliver story. Something that was called out on Breath of the Wild, and it's a little weird to see that they're doing the exact same thing again.
I don't think they'll be doing it for the whole game,
No.
because you can just go and get the tiers.
I think the other thing that kind of makes it not as, well, egregious is a big word, but doesn't make it quite as bad as the original is that it feels like there's a lot more story in just the main narrative. Like, just kind of traveling around, there's a lot more story beats, there's a lot more character stories and whatnot. So having this little bit of story tucked away through this memory-esque system isn't, like, that's not the only bit of story you're getting.
Here's my thing. And this is a critique that I'm not going to say will hold strong. But the nature of this game and Breath of the Wild being super open world is I feel I'm not getting the impact of this character's doing this now because I don't remember them. You know, like,
Well, that's why we have character profiles now.
Well, you know, because we weren't forced to at any point really in Breath of the Wild to like an ocarina, right, or something, to really engage with a town in an intensely long way with these boring, annoying side quests that you have to do, right? Like sometimes you don't. Maybe it's just been a long time, and so I was like, I'm really hitting up to these moments that I'm supposed to feel like, oh, that's what they're doing to like. Who? Like, I'm too much who, I feel like, is a problem. But you're right. They do have the profiles to remind you. But even still, sometimes I'm like, I've read the profile. But anyway.
I think in terms of the general story, I think it's an interesting direction they're going. I really like the fact that the very opening of the game was you getting Metroided and also just discovering all of these kind of story beats as you explore the ruins. After that, I still feel weirded out by the fact that Rauru is now like a dragon man as opposed to like the chubby guy from Ocarina of Time.
Oh, right. Well, I think it's really interesting. And Sam, feel free to chime in too. Really interesting how much we learn about like the dragons. And this was kind of my one of our theories on the episode I think I did with Miles when we did the gameplay. We analyzed Anuma's gameplay, that the dragons will be a really important part of the plot because and they're definitely hinting at it with the Zelda flashbacks.
I haven't gone too far in that yet because I've only gone the first one, but the presence of the dragons in the sky and the fact that when you dive down, it's because like the dragons split the cloud layer, which is also something that was foreshadowed in Breath of the Wild, which is just super cool.
Well, even the logo has dragon in it, right?
Yeah.
And that Zoe and I have dragon imagery all over it. Like, I'm getting the sense that like the lore of Breath of the Wild that we're memory jumping to is a lot more interesting than maybe the 100 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, that's what I'm saying.
The reference to the imprisoning war, which is like a Link to the Past thing, has got my head real scratched.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the imprisoning war is the specific term used in the prologue to A Link to the Past that refers to the war in which Ganon got sealed in the Golden Land, like the Sacred Realm. It's that term that's only ever been used in that one context in the series, I think. So I'm really curious whether this is just them like reusing a term, or if this is actually like, hey, this is how this ties into that game's story.
You could put a dunce cone on my head. I don't know anything about the Zelda story. I don't know anything about the Zelda plot.
Fair.
Well, we've seen Gleeok at the trailers too.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone. Okay, has anyone?
I can't wait to see him, man. Oh.
Right. Has anyone actually gotten? And I have, but if no one has, I'm not going to talk about it. Gotten to cutscene with Ganondorf in it.
No. Do you mean like rehydrated Ganondorf?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Okay, so I won't talk about it then because I don't want to ruin it. But like I have, and it's like I am liking it. So like I'm liking this portrayal so far.
Okay, pretty cool.
So far, so good. Yeah, and like the opening too. Like it's a very slow. Like walking with Zelda, and she interrupts you every 5 seconds. And hieroglyphs like murals bore me in every game that does it. And this game too, like, you did the art direction, like, not actually hieroglyphic, unless it was like one from like an old game that they like brought back.
They just found these in like underground Japanese caverns.
Yeah, they just drew them for this game, so of course they are accurate. I don't know, but I really like they rehydrated Ganon and he in that sequence. This is the opening cutscene, so not spoiler, not like super spoilers. where he like wakes up. I didn't expect him to like wake up and speak and like
Yes, I wasn't expecting this
you know
speaking.
like, and it was really like intimidating, and I don't know. I thought that was awesome as like a you say like as Metroiding as a way to remove your powers. This was good. Like I was like,
Right.
that's a good way to do it.
Although,
And also that it not only do you get Metroided at the start, this is a gameplay mechanic when you enter the depths and
Yes.
how your hearts get permanently taken away in the depths. So it actually like makes sense and is more canonical than any time Metroid's ever done this. Like,
right.
That's-
Although I do
you're right.
think it ends up being kind of contrived, how it's like, ah, yes, every single metal weapon in the world has gotten decayed.
Okay, wait, so we brought this up. I wanted to talk about this. I love how they not only do weapons break, but all of them suck. Like that is so funny. Like not
They just
only
double
are
down on
like,
it, yeah.
like they didn't just like not solve the weapons breaking for people that bothered, but they made every weapon bad. Like so like that's
Oh, you don't want to
such
use
a
your
funny,
strong weapons? Well, don't worry.
That is such a funny solution. To weapon deteriorating is like you'll never get attached to any
I
of
do
them because
really
they're all
like
horrible.
it though, because in like to counterbalance that, they also give weapons specific attributes. So now rather than just like a pure
I
numerical
love that.
value, they have another function. So there's other reasons to be having all these different varieties of weapons rather than just focusing on like having a stock of like one or two kinds that are just really strong because they serve these
you're
different
right.
purposes.
It totally solves a massive problem about weapon breaking. Is like, oh, I want to, if Breath of the Wild, I want to break ore, I need to have a hammer. Well, now you just need a rock nearby to fuse your weapon to, and now you have a hammer. You'll always have a hammer if there's a rock nearby, and there's a billion rocks in the game.
yeah, and also too when you the weapons. The vanilla weapons are all garbage, but when you actually use the fuse mechanic and slap them together, they actually do become decent.
Yeah.
Not only decent weapons, but also weapons that last for like a good chunk of enemies.
Yeah.
Any favorite fusions? So like one of mine is when you fuse with topaz or ruby, you get the electric
fire
wand or fire
yeah.
wand, which is like super useful.
I felt like a genius because in the Great Sky Island, when you got to the cult section, I just fused a ruby to a stick, and I had a fire source, so I didn't need to take any
that's so
warming
smart.
food.
Oh, I didn't. I was dumb. I wasn't ready in Sky Island. I was not. I was
You weren't
feeling.
plugged
I was
in.
still Breath of the Wild
Right.
mindset. I was still. Yeah, that's a good one. I fusing the mine cart to the shield,
Yes.
and you shield shield surf skateboard on
I
it.
just got a special sled fused to a shield. It's so cool. But yeah, I think
Any others?
Oh,
Any
man.
others? that you
Smart. I
found?
didn't even think to do that one. Guys.
this is
That's
so
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Oh man.
I
Like fusing
I-
wind stuff to give your weapons wind elements.
oh yeah, but having the wind on the shield so it like pushes the enemies back. That's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, the Korok frond is great,
Yes.
like as like a utility item that you can just make any. And again, now you don't have to have a Korok leaf in your inventory all the time, so that your inventory isn't at like the limited inventory isn't as a like gunked up by. Oh, I want to have this at all times. Well, there's a leaf, there's a tree around.
Yeah.
Get it. There's a rock
Yeah.
around. Get it.
Otherwise, I think the fact that when you attach a weapon to another weapon, it'll break sequentially. So, like, say you attach, like, Spear 2 to Spear 1, and you start attacking, Spear 2 will break before Spear 1 breaks. So after the first spear breaks, you just attach another one.
By the way, what you're describing is a heinous image of Link with a 40-foot long spear
Oh, the double
on his
spear.
back.
Yeah, I love double
it's so
spear. I need that
Poke
range.
from a mile away.
Well, like I said earlier in the first part, like this game is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really like the fusions are important and you know
Necessary.
necessary, and fusing with the like bokoblin, like
Yeah.
all the headgear, like really buffs your weapons up really
Yeah.
good.
And it makes them look cool too.
Right.
Like it actually like really visually changes up the weapon. One of mine is when you get a Lizalfo's tail and you equip it to a weapon, it turns it into a whip.
Oh, really? oh, man.
Yeah. It
I
gives
didn't,
it-
you know,
I need to go
didn't
kill
do that
more
yet. That's
lizards.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love all the I just love all the, it just makes melee combat, which I thought was kind of like simple and got kind of got a little boring, like around, after, halfway through my Breath of the Wild playthrough. In this, it just made the simple combat way more interesting with just a great breadth of options.
I do think my favorite weapon I've gotten is a sword that inflicts gloom while you're using it, but it has a native 41 damage to it.
Yo, I gotta get this!
One-handed sword, and I'm gonna use that to segue into the last major thing I want to talk about, which is enemy variety. Because I got this sword by... There was like a random exchange ruin somewhere on the west side of the map where I got to, and I thought I was already scared by the depths, but I just walk into those ruins and suddenly I get like a jillion Ganondorfized floor masters, like the giant creepy hands that all, like 5 of them pop out of the ground and the entire sky darkens and they all start rushing towards me.
No, yeah, me too. I'm so scared of those. I
terrified. So I nearly died to that. I warped away. I came back, started chucking like bomb flower after bomb flower at them. And I managed to kill the arms. And as soon as I killed the arms, Phantom Ganon showed up.
What?
So
See, I've never killed the arms. I just run away.
So just as an overworld boss, and it was like this epic fight against Phantom Ganon where it would just 2-shot my shield and it would 1-shot my health.
Did it like boss health bar
yes.
and everything?
Yep.
Wow!
Yep. And so I ended up fighting that and I managed to kill it and I got this like 41 damage like one-armed sword and I got a bow that does the more damage, the more hearts you have.
We are a mere sheep to what you've accomplished. I'm such a scaredy cat. I do want to mention on Fusion too, like, and I know like Arrow's Fusion is super fun. I bet like Arrow with the bomb on those hands.
Yeah, that's
really
what I was doing
because of their eye.
Yep.
Because of their eye, right?
Yep.
Oh man, that's awesome.
But
okay, well I will try to defeat that.
I think in general, just like that was such a cool unexpected enemy encounter, and it kind of, to me, it reflects how there's just so many cool enemies in this game. Like there's likes, there's the flying things.
Oh, the legs, and the new like monkey guys.
Yeah, the
Horriblins.
oh yeah, those
in
guys.
the chasms, there's like these frog enemies, and then there's like this giant frog equivalent that's like another boss monster. There's so much.
Nicolas, for someone who hasn't played the game as long as us, I feel like you've already encountered more than we have.
I mean, let's be fair.
You've seen everything.
I don't know how much I have played, but I got the game at like 2 p.m. yesterday, and I went to sleep at 2 a.m. today. And then I woke up at like noon, and I played until 7 p.m. So it's not like I haven't played the game.
Still, and by the way, I love the Korok backpack.
Yes.
These
idiots.
It's
so... Oh my god, it's so cute. I've also, by the way, I've like come across more of those guys than I have of the regular random Korok puzzles.
Same.
Which is appreciated, honestly. They're a lot easier to deal with.
And you get 2 for one activity.
I did accidentally end up rolling one down into a river and then watching him float away because I didn't notice in time, and I'm like, well, guess I'm not doing that one.
Rip.
But yeah.
Man, I don't know. I mean, anything else about this? I mean, I love like falling rocks and you're there's so much distraction in a good way in this game of like, oh, that rock is falling, I gotta see. And even if there's nothing, well, cool, I can at least get a lot of distance with my hang glider.
Skydive.
And I get a good. The new towers I think are really interesting, and the little quest to like unlock them are always kind of amusing ways like engage with like. Here's what. I made a joke while playing. I was like, man, Zelda was all about like full employment. Like every character, every NPC is like part of some task force that really like makes Hyrule feel so connected because like everyone's doing something to rebuild it, and it was because of Zelda's leadership. And they talk about how she like set up these kind of monster fighting or whatever. And I don't know, I really like how the world feels now because everyone was so disconnected in Breath of the Wild. There's some really cool thematic engagement with some guy coming to the tower. He's got to repair the door, but the door's shut, and you got to go in. And I don't know. I really like that part of it too. And there are different races of people doing it, and the new newspaper Gazette that's everywhere. Like, I don't know. There's a connectedness in not just the systems, but also the characters and the themes in the game that I've like fallen in love with as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything changed for the better once Hyrule got on the Chiral network.
Right. Right.
Sam, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I want to play it right now.
Okay.
Like Nick, I gotta go find these hands. I've been so scared by that.
Tom's gotta go catch these hands.
Yeah, I gotta go catch these hands. Because I would kill for a 41 weapon.
Oh, I feel like I've been living.
It.
I'm terrified of breaking it.
Right, good point. But I've been living at like 6 damage for like 10 hours.
Tom, go in your inventory. If you've taken out any mini boss of any kind, you're gonna have a.
Yeah, I've been fusing some stuff now, but.
Yeah, slap on those like 16, 17 fuse power horns, and you're.
No,
good
I haven't.
go.
I got a few of those. But sometimes I'll just like, instead of like going through an encampment, and because there's a chest at the end, I will then just build a giant bridge behind it and dodge all the enemies and just get the thing I want.
Yeah, I did that during. So there's one of the towers is surrounded by wooden pipes on all sides. So
Yes,
I just got behind the tower, plopped a little fan on the ground, and went whoop and paraglided.
You can
right
also
over.
burn the pikes too. You can just burn.
Oh, it's wood! I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is why this game is cool.
So yeah, I guess final thoughts is we're all gonna go back to playing this.
Final thoughts. I think this game, I so appreciate the slow pace and forcing me to slow down and pay attention, even though I think I know this game, I know this world, it's all the same. No, it really forces you with the new abilities and everything they knew and they placed in the game, all the new areas and ways they've updated it, that if you're not slowing down and just kind of taking your time moment by moment and enjoying it that way, you're not gonna have as good of a time, I feel like, instead of trying to rush through it or think the area as well. By the way, got all the amiibos out. Finally get my money's worth, trying to get some good rolls. Oh, there's also the gacha mechanic for all the like
for all the tools, the Zonai tools.
Yeah.
I love that because you get a ton of those cores, so you just plop in 5 and then
like
it just like spits
back.
out like 15. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and the amiibos work similarly. Like they drop a chest and it could be anything, crap or something cool and unique and exclusive to it. Except you scan the Link amiibo, and you get Epona, and she's max stats. And
I
she's
already
great,
had
and I'm
Epona
back.
because they transferred the horses over from Breath of the Wild.
Oh, that's right.
I do.
They do.
Yes.
So if you go to a stable,
Because it's already
by the way,
registered under your name.
there's pony points. You can get pony points. These for board membership at every stable, and that's a new mechanic.
There's just so much. There's so much that expands on the base game. We need to go back to playing it.
We were on final thoughts, and then I thought of 85 more major mechanics in the game. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's how this game is, though. There's just so much you can do.
Well, hopefully at some point, and I don't know when this is happening because I know it's going to take everyone on the site a long time, we can come back and do not even like a refresh, but just a dedicated spoiler discussion about the game and the story and everything. I'd love to do that eventually.
Yeah, that would be great. In the meantime, I think that just about wraps it up for this week's episode. So thank you for listening to Nintendo Everything Refresh. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like the show, please spread the word. We're always trying to reach new people. We're available on pretty much any podcast platform you can think of. And so with that being said, we'll be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.